G'day ladies and gents, and welcome to War Thunder with Mags, and welcome to the second of my 20,000 subscribers choice videos. Today we're going to be taking a look at the second highest voted aircraft in the collection, the Spitfire. Now the Spitfire series was voted in at almost 25% of the votes that were done, so 65% of the votes total, including the Wellington, went to just 2 airframes. And honestly, the Spitfire really surprised me that you guys voted it in, but it was one that I was very happy to fly out. Now I have waited till patch 1.7 before flying these ones out, so these are the patch 1.7 flight models, and I have a couple of Spitfires that you've never seen on the channel before. Both of them are premiums, and I know you're going to be very interested to see the second one, but first we have the Spitfire 14C. Now the 14C is a bit of an interesting aircraft. It's kind of a hybrid, somewhere between the Spitfire Mark 9 and one of the earlier Griffon Spitfires. It's Griffon powered, and you'll see the more modern Spitfire emerging from the engine cowling and the rear control surfaces, but if you actually look at the tail, cockpit and wings, you'll see the Mark 9 sitting right there in the middle. Now, I'm sure by now some of you have noticed the altitude that this engagement is taking place. That is Death Angel CZ. I've actually run into him in a couple of battles before. Incredibly good pilot. And he's in his Focke-Wulf 190 D9. The battle's actually been running for close to 10 minutes at this point, and it's been a giant one-up battle going into space between the two of us. We've had a couple of passes at one another, but no shots have been connected at this time. However, we're about to change that up and go down to the deck. Now, 2 things have actually happened. First is a second Spitfire has arrived in the last 60 seconds to 2 minutes, and has begun engaging Death Angel as well. So now he's in a 2-on-1 fight at altitude. The second thing is at 30,000 feet, both the Spitfire and the D9 are hitting their maximum altitudes. We're having trouble climbing or even maintaining speed, so down we go. Now before anyone drops a comment on it, yes, I am using wet by the water is overheating. I'm doing this because in excess of 20,000 feet or in excess of about 600 kilometers an hour, even if your water temperature is in the red, the Spitfire will not go into a timer, so you can abuse the crap out of the WEP all you want to try and get as much speed as you can without actually cooking your aircraft. Now the other hand on this, of course, before everyone starts crying OP broken, it's actually not. You can only abuse it to a certain point. This Spitfire will, being basically a Griffon Spitfire with a Mark 9 design, it'll actually rip its own wings off in excess of 740 kilometers an hour. Its dive speed is not actually that great for an Era 4 aircraft. This does mean you have a limitation on your speed. You can't go beyond. What's interesting is I'm pretty sure the Mark 9 itself can actually go faster, so I'm not entirely sure if this wing rip is a bug in the flight model or whether or not it's deliberately intended. I'm unsure as to the specifics of this aircraft, but it is interesting nonetheless. Now I've been very tightly restraining my speed during this dive from orbit because I don't want to rip the wings off this thing, and as a result, Angel in his D9 has just opened the gap and flown away from me. And I've just looked behind me and realised that I actually have another player diving in, tailing me at the moment. Now this other player is Sab20. Now Sab is a player that I've run into more than once in the past as well. He is another exceptional pilot, and it looks like I've just basically flown into a trap between these 2 fighters. So now Sab's in a position to be able to defend him. Angel has turned back and has gone underneath, ready to engage the second Spitfire that has just come down. I see Sab coming in at me, so dip and duck underneath. I'm not going nose to nose with the TA-152, I don't care what aircraft I'm in. Now, every time I duck underneath like this, I'm actually sacrificing a little bit of altitude, but I'm perfectly fine with that. The TA-152's major advantage is its performance at altitude. If you can get one of those things into a fight in the sky, it can get higher than 30,000 feet. It can actually get so high that the entire first generation of jets can't get to it. The Mark 14C, on the other hand, while it has exceptional medium to high altitude performance, will actually slowly get more and more manoeuvrable the lower you get it to the ground. So what I want to do is drag Sab and his TA-152 right down to the deck where I can just turn inside of him and kill him. That extra turning capability will also help with Angel floating around because he is still engaging me as well. With 2 hostile aircraft aggressively attacking me at the moment, I don't need speed. You need speed to catch enemy aircraft. It's quite clear that these 2 enemy aircraft are going to come to me. What I need is turning capability so I can outmaneuver them and beat them in this fight. Once again, just pass underneath Angel as he goes over and then loop over behind him, try and get above so I can force him down if possible. And this leads on to the second reason why I want to get this TA-152 and this D9 down on the deck. Once they're on the deck, they cannot dive away anymore. They no longer have the altitude to be able to run efficiently. The acceleration on this aircraft is good enough that I will be able to catch them both on the deck, so not only will I be able to outturn them, but I'll be able to outrun them, and they'll have no way of escaping. If I'm going to go into a 2-on-1 fight, that's where I need these guys. Now, I'm pretty sure Sab was looking for an angle on me then, but that second Spitfire was preventing him from turning in too hard, and me and Angel were in a very tight right-hand turn at the time, so he wasn't able to get a shot at me, but he has turned around and is making a second approach. Now, I'm trying to sit myself directly below Angel here. I've got enough airspeed that at this range I'll be able to quite easily burst up to get shots on him, but I want him to continually dive down like that. He'll never regain the altitude he spends from dives of that kind, trying to get his guns on me. But it is going to slowly step us down closer and closer to the ground each time he does it. Now at the last second I spot Sab making another pass, so quickly full elevation down and curve underneath. Sab overshoots, so I'm quite safe to continue engaging Angel. Now at this point I'm on his tail, I've got the advantage and I'm just pushing him slowly down to the ground. And now it's time to go for the kill. I'm in optimal gun position, he's now within my convergence, I have the advantage, and he is currently control locked in a dive. I'm very close to maximum speed here, so I have to back off and watch my speed closely, but get the shots in, into the trees he goes, and there's my first kill. Angel is out of the fight. Immediately back on the WEP, point the nose up at about a 35-degree angle and start getting as much altitude as I can. That TA-152 is coming back in, and I need to be in a good position for it. Sab makes a move, take the plane into a rollover to get above him, then roll in underneath to avoid his guns. Now you'll notice I did that entire maneuver tracking his plane rather than looking at where I was going. That is because I needed to see where his nose was pointing, so I knew where to roll my aircraft to make sure I didn't get into his guns. There's no point in maneuvering against an enemy aircraft if you don't know where he's aiming. Now that string of maneuvers has allowed me to fall in on Sab's tail. As I said before, the TA-152 has far less maneuverability than the Mark 14C does at low altitudes. I am now all over him. Without the altitude, Sab can't dive away to extend his gap, and it was only a matter of time. Critical hit to set him on fire, put a couple of extra shots in just to make sure the fire doesn't go out. And that's my second kill and the end of the match. I just want to say a big thank you to Angel and Saber20 for that fight. That was an excellent fight. I had an absolutely great time in it. Let's go through and check out the results. So not a huge match in terms of rewards, only Professional X2, Shadow Strike Streak X2 and Final Blow, 61,885 Silver Lions, but came in with 13,084 research points. And this match unlocked me the Seafire 17. I was originally going to show the Seafires on this video, but I decided that they really deserve, being a new aircraft, a video of their own. And so, that is the premium Spitfire F Mark 14C. What do I think of it? Well, it's a great aircraft, it really is. It does have some restrictions, however. You need to know how to fly it. If you don't, you're likely going to get yourself into a position where it's going to kill you, or something that I commonly see in this aircraft is people just tearing its wings off. It's well and truly capable of exceeding its own maximum speeds, and if you are not restraining yourself the right way, the plane will just break apart. Once you've learned how it fights, however, put it into a position where it likes to fight and you will dominate battles. And next up, we're going to have a look at the Russian Mark 9 Spitfire, and hasn't this thing stirred up a hell of a lot of controversy in patch 1.7? But first things first, errors in the damage model. You'll notice I just tore a wheel off from overspeed. There goes the other one. The undercarriage in this aircraft starts ripping off the plane at 270 kilometers an hour. Now, to put this into perspective, in almost every fighter in War Thunder, including the early biplanes that are capable of it, I don't actually lift off the runway until 300 kilometers an hour. The undercarriage is it's incredibly weak. It's weaker than any other aircraft in the game. There is no aircraft besides the Russian Mark 9 that rips off its own undercarriage at a speed that low. Well, no single-engine fighter anyway. So, I just want you to keep in mind that everything you see in this video is with all the undercarriage torn off the aircraft. I've actually got a belly land if I ever want to put this thing back on the ground. I have two gaping holes in the underside of my aircraft, wrecking my aerodynamics. So, just remember that. That's going to be important. Now I'm going to start fast forwarding and compressing time a little bit here. Now we're about a minute into the game up until the point that I started hitting the fast forward button. Now this thing's rate of climb is insane now, because it now has 150 octane fuel, and this is where the controversy in this aircraft is coming in. When it was originally added to the game, it had 150 octane. It was then removed, as it was pointed out by the community, that the Soviets never ran 150 octane fuel in their Spitfire squadrons. Now suddenly in 1.7, the 150 octane fuel is back in the aircraft, with no patch notes saying it was going back in, and no explanation as to why they are giving it an unhistorical fuel load. Now the amount of time that I've just compressed is 3 minutes. We're 1 minute into the air at the time that I started the fast forward. When we complete it, 3 minutes additional have gone past. This is 4 minutes of climbing in the Spitfire Mark 9 with 150 octane fuel. And we are now at just short of 19,000 feet in 4 minutes. And a quick look back at my team shows exactly how far ahead of my team I am in both altitude and distance. I need to do a side-by-side test, but I'm thinking at the moment this thing probably outclimbs the American Spitfire. Forget what it says on the stat card. With the 150 octane fuel, I'm pretty sure this is one of the fastest climbing props in the game now. Now, it took about another 2 or 3 minutes for the Americans to finally get to altitude and find us, and I'm diving in on an American Premium Spitfire. He's just bursting his way up to 16,000 feet. I'm going to let him go up and above and burn off his energy, quickly flick on the WEP to close distance, bring myself into gun range, take the lead, and critical hit on the first burst. Now before diving in on a target, even if you have them crippled, it's always worth leveling out the plane for a split second and having a look around, and doing so immediately shows me that I have at least 3 more aircraft at my altitude, so I'm going to let the American Spitfire drop. I got a critical hit on its wing. It's not going to be able to perform at this altitude anymore, so it's going to be down on the deck. I have all the time in the world to go and catch it. However, my engagement with that Mark 9 has caused me to lose a little bit of altitude. I now have a P-51 above me. However, I am going to ignore him for the moment as this Spitfire over here has presented itself. However, I was just about to lock guns on where I saw a better target, a P-51 that was straight beneath me. It's just made a kill, so I'm going to take him out first. Quick burst through, critical hit. Keep the speed on, however, because the P-51 that was above me a second ago is diving in an attempt to catch me. Of course, I'll never outrun a P-51 who's diving, so into a rather dirty rocking split S as I turn back towards the enemy team. I notice I'm only currently 1.2 kilometers away from a Typhoon. A Typhoon looks like a perfect target. And there goes the P-51 that I just shot. Very short trigger tap as the Typhoon goes past. I was never quite in the right position, however. Again, a second split S brings me back around onto the Typhoon. Despite going through the blackout, I've actually bet him into position and have guns, but he pushes the nose down and dives underneath, so once again, back into a split S, falling back onto his tail. I keep doing the split S every time I step down on him, because it allows me to keep above 450 kilometers an hour, so he won't be able to outrun me. Now, the Typhoon was just in a good firing position and within my convergence. Unfortunately, I aimed poorly and missed. Typhoon realizes I'm still there, points the nose down and goes into a high-speed dive. Now, this would be the point that a Typhoon should quite easily outrun the Spitfire, but this Spitfire now has 150 octane fuel. 757 kilometers an hour, which is about the same dive speed as the Mark 14C Griffin Spitfire that I showed you just before. Sitting right on his tail, and there's a kill shot. Second kill of the match. So, the Mark 9 Spitfire was always one of the most manoeuvrable aircraft in the game, and the Russian one was no exception to this. But now with its 150 octane fuel, it can pretty much outclimb anything that it can potentially face. I think in its battle rating it should be, with testing, should prove to be the highest climb rate aircraft in the game. In terms of dive speed, the Tempest 1B Late is one of the fastest divers in its battle rating, and again, the Spitfire can dive with it. And with the Spitfire's incredibly high energy retention, it can retain that speed for longer. Now, do you remember that American Premium Spitfire that I critical hit at the start of the match? Yeah, there he goes, that's my third kill. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was pretty much the end of this match. Now, there is just one thing I want to show you before we go to the results. Now, this is the in-game scorecard just before the end of the match. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this one is because the one in the actual results doesn't show what aircraft everyone was flying. Now, all you really want to see here is first and second place. First place, Mad Max with 4 kills in his premium Mark 9 Spitfire, and I pull in just behind him with 3 kills in mine. In total, just the two of us account for over half the enemy team's deaths and all but 2 of our team's kills. So, obviously over to the actual results. Fighter Rescuer, Avenger, Professional X2, Shadow Strike Streak X2, Win Streak X3, 81,210 silver lines for my 3 kills, and 14,546 research points on a premium account on a premium aircraft with no boosters applied. Now this of course was enough RP to unlock the new IL-237 in one shot without actually having to fly any other matches, so Russia was really easy to unlock this patch. And of course the match itself actually earned enough money that I could afford to pay for the IL-2 without actually dipping into the cash that I already had sitting in the bank. So, ignoring what the bug on the stat card says in the top left hand corner of the screen, this is actually the Russian Premium Mark 9 Spitfire. And, well, you know what? I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to let you guys be the judge of this thing's performance yourselves. Until next time, click like if you do, subscribe if you want to see more. Fly smart, fly safe, and I'll catch you in the skies.